Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, this is still Good Morning Abuja on NTA Channel 5, the Unity Station. This time we have our first guest in the house and we want to look at beyond literary fiction, exploring other genres in writing fiction in Nigeria. We have an author in the house and the person of Nneoma Michelle Egeonu. She is the author of the Kachiobi series, founder, Guild of Africa Thrillers Authors. Please join me as I welcome her.
Thank you so much.
Nneoma, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. When we talk about fiction, a lot of people begin to wonder, for a layman, what are we talking about here?
Okay, when we talk about literary fiction, we talk about essentially stories that focus on the human condition, human experiences, right? So basically, we look at it from the angle of a character. Like we're trying to explore the angle of a character, their unique personalities, their struggles, what it is that they may have faced. So you can also incorporate things like, politics, maybe one or two evils befalling them. But essentially, it revolves around the human person, the human condition. However, when we talk about genre fiction, that's when we talk about stories that are modeled with a very specific kind of like formula, like you use a formula to model those stories. And that's when we talk about stories like crime fiction, futuristic thrillers, legal thrillers. So romance. Yeah. We have romantic thrillers as well. So these ones are genre fiction. But literary fiction are a bit more focused on a person, like they are character driven. You focus more on their experiences and what makes them who they are.
So let's look at the diversity. Let's look at how diverse are the genres being explored by Nigerian writers. Let's look at that.
Right. Okay. There's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of diversity. We know very much about literary fiction. So when we talk about literary fiction, these are the stories that we grew up reading. However, now we have a lot of diversity. We have authors that explore crime. We have authors that explore political thrillers, science fiction, legal thriller. There's so many of them. So there is a lot of diversity. However, I would like to add that not all of them are actually published, right? Yeah, because some of them, they do have the talent to tell these stories, but due to one or two challenges, they are actually not published. But I have communicated with a community of writers, and I know that we have a lot of diverse writing amongst our authors and our writers in Nigeria. And I think Nigerian writers are some of the most talented in the world. And
I agree to that.
Oh, absolutely. So they are doing a fantastic job.
Let's look at the challenges and opportunities, that the writers face when venturing into this kind of, or this style of writing.
Well, first of all, I think there are a lot of unique challenges, right? And some of them is that, first of all, literary fiction is seen as the most serious sort of fiction stories because that's what is most accepted. So most of these writers, when they set out to start writing, it's almost like they are scared. Who is going to accept me? Who is going to read my stories? Who is going to, so that is usually one of the challenges. And also another very unique challenge that I think that African storytellers, particularly Nigerian writers, face is that we don't really have a lot of funding for writers. We don't really have a lot of support for writers. And this is the kind of disparity that I see between African or Nigerian writers and American writers, for instance. There's a lot of publishing opportunities. But here, we don't really have such. And that is one of the most unique challenges that I feel like writers have. And it scares them from wanting to come out and tell their story. But I think they need actually more support to be able to, tell their stories and be accepted.
Let's look at how the Nigerian reading public, how do they receive or accept this kind of writing?
Right. Well, the Nigerian public are very diverse. I would say that we're very diverse. As much as literary fiction is more of what's sort of generalized. But right now we have self-publishing. So it's like publishing has been democratized. Like it's no longer the way it used to be before. Like you have to go through a very big traditional publisher before you can get your story out there. So with the rise of indie publishing, what we call independent publishing, writers are more able to get their stories out there. So, however, there are still some challenges. Some of our readers, they are not really used to thrillers, African thrillers. They are not really used to them. So they are still trying to understand what is this, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it and all that? I have met a couple of readers that some of them, they read my books and they're like, I'm very surprised that there's an African story that has such a very unique and beautiful background like this. Is it possible? So I think this is some of the most unique challenges that some of our writers face. Okay. Some readers are still trying to get adapted to it. However, I think there is a growing interest for thrillers, right? Okay. There is a growing interest for thrillers. We want people. But writers need to have an opportunity for them to get their stories out there so that more people, there's a lot of appetite for these stories, but we need to have a more bigger platform and opportunities for the writers to get their stories out there so that readers can know that, yes, all the kind of stories you love to read thriller stories, you love action stories, it's very much obtainable here. Yes, so these are some of the things that I think are the biggest challenges.
Okay. Well, let's also look at the opportunities for you in Nigeria. What do you think are the opportunities for these writers?
Right. I think that, to be honest, we don't have a lot of opportunities for genre writers, people that write thrillers. But like I said, because that there's something called indie publishing now, where you don't have to rely on traditional publishers, authors can write their stories, edit, format, and then put it on Amazon, platforms like Amazon. That is what I mean by indie publishing. They put it on Amazon seller. So in that way, it's easier for them to get out their stories. Unlike in the time when we have to rely only on traditional publishers to accept our stories and get it out there. So I think that, sorry, what was the question again?
We talked about opportunities, right? Looking at opportunities.
Opportunities, yes. So these are some of the opportunities. However, there still need to be more platforms for writers to sort of come out and express their talents. And that is what we do at GATA, the Guild of African Thriller Authors. We hope to provide platform for writers to come, to network, to share their talent, their storytelling abilities. Once you have that creativity inside of you, you can come to platforms like GATA. There are a couple of other platforms rising up now, but I'm very sure of what we do at GATA, and we're able to provide those opportunities. GATA is relatively a new organization. We are still growing, but we believe that with the right opportunities and networking, we can be able to get ourselves more out there, and readers and writers can connect with us, and then we can get their stories out there more than that.
Okay, from your own experience, how developed do you think the market for this literary fiction is in Nigeria?
Yeah, genre fiction. Okay, I would say, like I said before, we have a growing interest in thrillers. Some people are still trying to understand. Nigerians read thrillers, Africans read thrillers. However, I feel like they are more used to foreign thrillers. They are more used to reading books by, James Patterson, the likes of Freda McFadden and the rest of them.
Chase.
Exactly, James Hadley Chase. So they are still trying to understand that these things are very much obtainable here. So this is where I feel like we need to put our stories more out there so that they can understand that whatever it is they can get outside there is very, very much obtainable here as well.
Okay. Yeah. So let's look at the future. What does the future hold for this kind of writers?
Okay, well, first of all, I think that Nigerian stories, African stories are pushing the boundaries. They are breaking stereotypes. There used to be a time, or it's still happening in a way, when stories by Africans are seen in the Western world in a certain kind of way. It's what we call poverty porn. Stories that talk about poverty in Africa, suffering, all those kind of things. But now the future that I see is that genre fiction is really pushing the boundaries. We have a lot of powerful Nigerian thriller writers that are really, really pushing the writing. This thing. So I feel like in the near future, we can get to know more about Nigerian stories. And I also look forward to having most of our books on as audiobooks, where people with disabilities can get to listen to stories. There are people that love to read, but maybe due to one challenges or the other, they are not able to, read in paperback. So talking about, stories that I feel like are really pushing the boundaries, I have some of them here with
Okay,
me.
okay.
So this is my book, In
Wow.
Broad Daylight.
In Broad
So this is the
Daylight.
first book in the Kachiobi series.
Okay.
And it's essentially a crime psychological thriller.
Okay, you can turn it.
Oh, yes.
No, the other way.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, so this
In
is
Broad Daylight.
Yes, it's a crime psychological thriller.
Okay.
So it explores, a lot of crime, and the psychological aspect delves into the human psyche, the complexity of the human thoughts, intellect, and all that.
Wow.
So these are some of the stories that I feel like are really pushing the boundaries, right? And in the future, our stories are going to be more out there. And something else I expect to see more in the future in Nigerian stories and African stories is I want more of our books to be adapted into movies. I mean, we see people that love to watch movies and all that. We need to understand that all these stories can be adapted into what we see in Hollywood, right? Okay. So these are some of the things. Also, speaking, we also have an anthology by Guild of African Thriller Authors. It's actually named Nigerian Women Are the Devil's Playmate, and we have 7 powerful stories in this anthology, and it has a lot of reviews. It has about 1,000+ downloads now. And we hope that with these opportunities, we can put our stories more out there, and people can see that whatever it is that they can obtain out there, we have powerful writers here that are pushing the boundaries.
So it's proudly Nigerian.
Proudly Nigerian, proudly African, yes.
Now, I know there are other writers that want to be like you, and especially for those ones who are trying to push their work or discourage. What would you say to them as a roundup?
Okay, first of all, I was saying that every writer out there, first of all, don't be scared to tell your story. Don't be scared to own your unique voice. I see a situation whereby, as a founder of GATA, I've seen a lot of writers that they focus more on readership. They just want people to come out. Immediately they come out, they become famous. I feel like the most important thing is own your voice. Don't be scared to push the boundaries. Don't be scared to move beyond the stereotypes. Read. I mean, I can't emphasize a lot the importance of reading. You love to write thriller stories, different genres. Read, read, read. That way you can be able to understand the kind of things, the way the writer crafts their stories, the way they build their plots, the way they add the suspense and the intrigues. And as much as that, I think it's very important for them to network with other writers. I mean, this is why we have a platform like GATA, the Guild of African Thriller Authors. You can join such platforms, see what they do, read their stories, network. I mean, just don't be scared to own your voice. Don't be scared to tell your stories out there. And with time, every other thing like readership will take care of itself. And then when you're done telling your stories, also try as much as possible to put in 1 or 2 efforts to market it out there so that our people, Nigerians love to read. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, we do. Africans
love to read. So if you are able to put your stories out there and market it and own your own unique voice, with time, the sky will be your limit.
Sometimes, let me just say, sometimes ago, that they used to say when you want to hide anything from a Nigerian, you put it in a book, but no more.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Thank you. She has said it. Own your voice. Okay, and then mingle with other writers. Oh, thank you so much. So we've been speaking with Nneoma Michelle Egeonu. Okay, she is the author of the Kachiobi series, founder Guild of African Thrillers Authors. Yeah, you've heard from her. You are now a writer and you want to push your work, there's a platform for you. She has just said so, and she has told us that all these books are proudly Nigeria. So we have what it takes. So you don't need to go reading other people's books. Remember that charity begins at home. Let's go on this break, and when we come back, the program continues.